for anyone that's going through it now. It's a real emotional attachment that you get. The way that these worlds can be discontinued, the documentation of these worlds to save your memories will not be in 3D. They're going to be in video recordings, in screen captures, in a 2D format. So that was something that I found really interesting when you're saying goodbye to these worlds that you created or other communities that you were a part of across these digital landscapes is, oh, the way that we archive these worlds is through photographs. And so you have to give yourself time to grieve, but then use that wisdom about how much you're really going to invest in a social VR space going forward. And maybe even take a look at some of the skills that you've developed in creating worlds and seeing how you can translate them into other platforms. The creative component and your artistry and your design and your curiosity goes with you wherever you are. You take that with you.
Welcome back to episode, this is technically 5 of the existential crisis of a tech enthusiast. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about social VR. There has been another earthquake shaking up the XR industry, and this one was a huge rumble. If you were to measure on the earthquake scale, at first it was a 10, and then it kind of regressed back to a 9.5.
It's like an 8.
You think it's
like
an
an 8.
It's an 8.
8 points there.
So anyways, we have a lot to talk about in this particular space. To introduce myself, I'm Clorama. I am a former product manager that has worked in big tech at Google and at Meta Reality Labs as well.
I'm Siciliana Trevino. I'm a 3D designer, world builder, and filmmaker. And I was a former product manager for AlcoveVR.
The VR conversations right now are very bipolar. There was a post that Nathan just posted the other day on Twitter, and I'll post it here. It was basically kind of perfectly described what the conversations in VR online look like today between VR is dead community and I love VR and it does so much for me emotionally. The two things can be true at the same time, and two sides are missing things at the same time. And obviously there's a lot of emotion behind it, and one, it can be a cynical take. The middle ground that we need to have a real conversation around and an honest conversation around is, hey, we all believe in VR. That's the common ground we all have. We all love VR technology. We all saw the potential of it. However, maybe the path of where VR is going today is something we need to ask questions about. Is this the path that's going to lead to this potential dream that we all see it? Or can we have a healthy discussion around what we see not going right or why things are failing where we didn't expect it to fail, and kind of unpack the direction of the technology in the current strategies that we see today, to better shift and adjust how we align accordingly. Because as you were mentioning earlier, Siciliana, we all have attached to our identity to VR as in some way, shape, or form. And if VR were to go away, what does that mean for us? As people who've really bonded with this idea, who've been excited, have been championing it for a while. And for context, for those who don't know, we'll do this real quick, but I'm pretty sure everyone who's watching this already knows. Horizon Worlds was announced to be discontinued. We got a 90-day eviction notice. And then a couple of days later, that was walked back. It'll still be in maintenance mode. You can still use it. And then also they won't be allowing new creation of worlds.
It's basically set out to pasture, and they won't have any more new updates. So you can assume that eventually everything will just stop working, because as they release new versions of the Horizon app and the store, there'll be less support for those things. And so when something breaks, there's nobody to fix it.
That's what that means, exactly.
It's the end of an empire, basically.
Anyways, this is an opportunity to start to diversify. If you built a business on this particular platform, make sure you're planning accordingly.
For the VR mode, Horizon World wasn't a success as a social VR platform, but now it is looking for growth on the mobile platform. So if you're a mobile developer, it's good news for you, potentially.
This is why I love to keep asking the question, what is the definition of success? Because for people who are huge fans of Horizon Worlds, it was already successful. It was successful to be able to create community, to connect to others, to be able to build that business, to spend quality time in, but it necessarily was not a success for the platform, which ultimately is
there were no users. Yeah.
the long-term trajectory of this app. Okay, let's start off with like positive like things, because like this is definitely an emotional experience, because like, you've been this 10 years again, like minimum.
I've seen things go away. I've
You
been
see that?
victim. Yeah, I've
Yes,
been
you've been a
victim
victim
of,
of this many times over, Siciliana.
yeah.
So I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are newer to this space would enjoy your wisdom of how to navigate these ups and downs of the social VR landscape, because there have been many an attempts. This is not just for Meta directly, but for the platform, for third party, for first party, and there's been successes, which we're going to talk about. And then there has been pitfalls for some of them. So let's just go ahead and jump into it, because we're seeing an interesting split. Like there's some people who are like, oh, we're back. It's good. We're okay.
Communication around uh, discontinuing Horizon Worlds and then offering some level of maintenance for it to be around and people to visit has been so poor. I think that is one of the biggest challenges, is that there's no cohesion or real clarity. Horizon team will send out an email that says, we're going to focus on mobile. And that means that it won't be available in VR anymore. And immediately on numerous Horizon World communities were just in disarray and confusion over what this email was about. There was just this conflict of, is it going away? Well, it's staying for mobile. And that created a lot of confusion and disappointment for people that had just bought their headsets. So the CTO of Meta, Andrew Bosworth, a week later did a Ask Me Anything, and people brought up the discontinuation of Horizon, where he was able to say, well, I have some, somewhat good news. It'll be on maintenance mode, so you'll still be able to visit worlds, but there won't be any more updates. And again, another wave of confusion over what that messaging was about. And so it creates this emotional roller coaster for people that have really become emotionally attached to their worlds, to their avatars, to the communities that they've built in social VR, which is the whole point. When I started in VR, it was all about the future of social presence. Now, Horizon Worlds released to the public about 4 years ago, so it was just on the tail end of the lockdown. So they had kind of missed the whole initial lockdowns around COVID, which had been driving a lot of use of social VR in spaces like VR chat. But the challenge overall is understanding the direction from leadership on the Meta side. And so the community just gets rife with rumors and conflict because people are trying to correct each other over what's actually the intention is for this platform going forward. Now, for advice, I would just say it's a real grieving process when you lose your digital identity. You grow in an emotional attachment. And I'm speaking from my experience in AltSpace, which was a platform that was purchased by Microsoft. Like, it was an independent company early on. You could use it in the Oculus DK2, but in the early days, 2014, 2015. The places you would go in social VR were VR chat and AltSpace. Those were the primary platforms where you could meet, and or the most popular. And so when AltSpace went away, there was a big community rally to keep the lights on. They went dark for a few weeks, I think, and then Microsoft picked them up and opened the doors again, and we got to really enjoy a few more good years and do things like Burning Man in VR. And so for advice on folks who are grieving the loss of these platforms, I would just say take some time. For anyone that's going through it now, it's a real emotional attachment that you get, and so you have to give yourself time to grieve, but then use that wisdom about how much you're really going to invest in a social VR space going forward. Try to realize the way that these worlds can be discontinued. It's a clue that VR and these spaces will never entirely take over any kind of medium like mobile phones or desktop or TV, because the documentation of these worlds to save your memories will not be in 3D. They're going to be in video recordings, in screen captures, in a 2D format. So that was something that I found really interesting when you're saying goodbye to these worlds that you created or other communities that you were a part of across these digital landscapes is, oh, the way that we archive these worlds, save them, and remember them is through photographs. And so you have to give yourself time to grieve, but then use that wisdom about how much you're really going to invest in a social VR space going forward, and maybe even take a look at some of the skills that you've developed in creating worlds and seeing how you can translate them into other platforms. The creative component and your artistry and your design and your curiosity goes with you wherever you are. You take that with you, but the memories, yeah, it feels like you're losing these worlds. It's not pleasant. It's not. And I think the way that the companies can easily discontinue something like it was your favorite tennis shoe or a t-shirt or something like that, it doesn't translate. They don't understand the level of commitment by their niche users. So it's a real dilemma. If you're trying to talk about success, then yeah, it's all about scale for businesses. But when you're talking about success for users, it's about the community. It's about the emotional connections that people are making. For every dollar that someone's trying to make or squeeze out of these platforms, there are real connections happening that are priceless, right? Like people find their significant partners in these spaces. They find lifelines. They find new ways to see themselves and the world. And that's what makes it so exciting. But for companies, they need to compete with the Roblox of the world that are, generating, in 2025
Not all companies need to do this, but companies as big as Meta
as
do need
Meta,
to,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
because
like,
the growth is their whole reason for being at this point. They just need to
yeah.
continue to grow.
We lost a lot of first party apps again with the biggest VR platform driving the industry right now. They have to be able to return to as big as they are, which is why we asked the question in the last one, like big tech, are they too big to innovate anymore? Because the return has to be in billions
Astronomical. Yeah.
astronomical
Yeah.
within a shorter time frame in order for it to continue the investment. They have to just keep hitting unicorn status immediately over and over again, whereas like these smaller companies don't have those high expectations, so they can find the right thing, find the right market, and grow organically, which in of itself may be more
They're lighter.
sustainable.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
lighter on their feet, and I think that's sort of it's an interesting dichotomy, because it's sort of like the David and Goliath, right? It's like, oh, you think this small little scrappy startup can't compete, but suddenly they've got the juice, and referring to Roblox, right? Because it's just like the biggest gaming thing on the planet. You're capturing the core audience that Facebook wants, which is the 9 to 12-year-olds, the younger generation, so that they have a longer life of usage.
My initial entry into VR, I had was looking at VR as a solution to understanding biases that happen in our industry, unconscious biases in the workplace, in the schools, and in just society in general. And one of the biases that we find in a lot of these different spaces is called the sunk cost fallacy.
Mm.
And I really think that's like the message of the moment, as we are figuring out is VR dead is not, or whether or not we're going to reinforce our commitments to it regardless of what's happening. The definition of that is its sunk cost fallacy is the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. Now, that hurts, right?
Hurt.
It hurts. When we hear VR is dead, at least, and I think this is why it's kind of further polarizing, we hear stop, give it up, abandon it. It's very dismissive of the things we do see right about it. What were you going to say? You're going to give a thought about that?
Well, I think it also is very it gives you a level of freedom if it's dead, right? Like if VR is dead, then it doesn't have it's not bearing the weight of being this promise of the future and all of the solutions to telehealth and all of these different industries that we're looking to gain and capitalize, which is fine. But the pressure to perform is no longer a driving force in the creation, and so that frees a lot of independent creators to find their own way within the platforms and within their own visions of the kind of stories they want to tell with this technology without having the pressure of it having to perform.
Yeah.
So I live in this world where to me it's a little bit like VR is a zombie, right? Like it's died so many times and it sort of bubbles up and comes back, but it's not going away.
Mhm.
I think it will just continue to exist in um in a is sort of in a niche way with the use of robots and remote work and things like that. People use VR headsets to man drones or to direct robots.
It has a function in
Yeah,
society. It has
there's
a
just not
true
going to be
value
visible.
function.
It's now it's integrated, right? So we don't
Yeah.
notice it as much.
Yeah.
Will it be as pervasive as mobile phones? Not in
Which is the
anywhere in the near
consumer.
term.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's here. It's not going anywhere, and usage will wax and wane depending on which headsets are coming out. And as those things improve, more people could have access to it for a variety of uses, not just games.
Yeah.
But that conversation about it being dead, well, it's not dead. It's just integrated
Yeah.
now.
And this is actually good for you to clarify too, because you said in the first episode you believe VR is dead. Obviously, you didn't mean it that way, and you made that very
Right.
you explained how you felt it. But I love this detailed breakdown of how you see it. So would you still say you are
Yeah,
team VR is dead?
team VR is dead, and I think it's a
But this is
good
how you
thing.
would
I think
mean it.
I
Yeah.
I I sort of say that as in a facetious way, right? Like with
Right.
a little
Yes.
wink and a smile. Like it's still here. It's not going where. It's just not saturating our consciousness the way mobile phones do. It's not capturing our attention the way mobile phones do. We're not like
Consumer.
Hollywood has more
Yeah.
of a threat from going from big screen theaters to people
Yeah.
just watching things on their phone than being afraid of VR coming to take their lunch,
But
right?
that could be a timing thing, right? It could be like maybe not today, but maybe in 10 years this will be the case. Some people make
But
that argument.
that's the interesting thing about being a futurist too, is that now that you mention it,
You
it's that
keep
we're
kicking the
always
ball down the
kind of,
road.
yeah, it's like, oh, 10 years from now. And it's just like, you could look at some old ads for like email, right? Nobody's talking about email's the future. Email is still here, going strong, and any business that's worth its weight is trying to create a huge email list for their funnel, right? The idea that, yeah, VR is dead, but it's here and it's thriving, right? So email is dead, but we use email all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just your photo, but I'm going down the rabbit hole.
I think you landed where it needed to be. Do you think that when other people say VR is dead, they have this also similar, nuanced definition of what they actually mean?
Yeah, I
Do you
think
think
it's
that
like,
you're common? Yeah.
yeah, for VR to be dead, it's not a viable business use case either
Yeah.
to create a game.
Yeah.
As a filmmaker, I know I was really excited. Like the thing that got me going about VR was that aha moment, or the
Yeah.
light bulb goes off, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And there are these incredible experiences that would give you this feeling of potential moments of humanity. Once you get past the novelty of it, yeah, as a way to grow a business, it's pretty much dead in terms of like the generation coming up now wants to make stuff on Roblox, right? They want to be a
Yeah.
Roblox creator. They're not thinking about, oh, how am I going to build my business on a VR platform? So that's what and dead means, like, no money. Right?
Okay,
So
so that's why you think other people mean.
money.
That's how you
Yeah,
think
it's just money.
the whole team. Okay, they're mean it in a money financial way. Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe that's what the team I Still Love VR stop.
Yeah.
Bullying me about this. That's what they're kind of getting wrong about what the VR is dead
Well,
moniker
but I think
mantra
that's
is.
where that gives you the freedom, right? Now that you have the pressure of the business and use case off of you, that because you're not using it for that
Yeah,
expectation, then you have, well, what do I want to use it for? If I already know I'm not really going to make money, and because everything has to be monetized, right? Like, oh, you can't just have a hobby. You can't just, it's like, oh, you got to be productive. But a lot of times you find you find those things accidentally by just being able to explore without any pressure.
Yeah.
And so I think this gives another way
Mm-hmm.
for artists and creators to tell their stories without feeling like they have to perform in a way, in a business sense, right? So there's this freedom of like, no one's really paying attention to what I'm doing now anyway. So I might as well do what I care about and what's important to me. And from that comes, oh, actually, people agree with that, and they all rush in and they want to be a part of that.
Okay, so it's a form of self-preservation that this is
Yeah,
being
like
said, but it's
it's
also a
great. Let it be
liberating
dead. Yeah, let it be dead.
ideology.
Let people
Right.
think that
Okay.
it's over. Let
Yeah.
people do all that and go on to the next thing, because
Yeah.
now I can actually build something that I care about.
Okay. So this is actually good, probably understanding of that demographic of those people who are saying that are the people who are probably who've come into it for financial return. But there's a reason why the
They're
people who came into
passionate or
VR,
drawn to, yeah.
there's yes, it's overlap. So it's not to dismiss that, oh, you're just in it for money. No, they love VR as well. And then you have the people who love VR. The money is not a priority. It's just a nice to have. When we see like the downfall or these ups and downs, we take it personally. It's an identity thing. When we hear VR is dead, we feel like it's an attack, like you're not allowed to love what you love, which is not what is being meant. But that's how it's being heard. And so then we get even more defiant. But then there's something wrong there. There's a blind optimism, and it's almost like we could start to carry it like a religion. Well, I still believe, and I'm going to
becomes your whole identity.
Yes, and then we reinforce that identity or make it stronger. But what we're missing is the reality of the platform that might end up hurting us even more. And it can also lead us astray if we're not looking realistically at what's happening. How do I maintain my love for VR, but also pay attention to the shifting winds so that way when this earthquake comes again, my whole world doesn't shake with it. This is my whole life. I feel like this financial independence, right? There's the financial independence, then there's the emotional independence, right? I don't want to be emotionally dependent on this technology. I love this technology, and there's going to be emotions attached to it, and I'll grieve if, God forbid, there is a world where the VR does this. Well, I don't believe that's going to happen, but God forbid that happens. I know I have something to still stand on because my emotions are not defined by this technology. It's defined by who I am that was attracted to that technology to begin with. And I can find that in other things that it can manifest in other forms. So how do I build a healthy attachment to it is the opportunity for the I love VR who are dependent on these platforms. Because let's be real, the biggest platform, and this goes into the next question of that's driving this VR industry, is the one that we're seeing shrinking, and that's what's creating all this chaos in terms of how we're talking about this and how we're investing in the drama of it all in VR. And so that leads me to my first question. Taking a step back and looking at this whole picture of VR in the whole landscape and industry, obviously Meta plays a huge part in driving this, but let's say Horizon Worlds, for some reason, that disappears in the future. Well, actually, let's go even start bigger. What happens to all of VR if Meta, for some reason, decided they are no longer investing in VR? How does the industry change? How does the market change?
Well, I think there's other headsets coming out, so I think it gives room to like things like Pimax or the Steam Deck. Is that it? The new
Steam Deck. Yes.
cameras. There's other players still making headsets. I don't think they will be as successful. There's also PlayStation VR, which is still around, and people will tinker. It'll become like a tinkering kind of maker environment because if Meta discontinues any of its VR program at all, and let's just say, okay, we tried it, and we're getting out of the VR business, which it does seem like it's doing, even though they're rumored to have another headset coming out next year. Why would you buy that headset? But why would you buy the headset when they're discontinuing some of the most compelling, programming on the headset, like Supernatural, or closing the studios that made Deadpool VR? People are still holding their breath for, Grand Theft Auto 6 in VR. Like, that's not happening.
Well, I mean, we're still waiting for Grand Theft Auto 6 in 2D.
In regular world. Yeah, in the regular world. So It's a real, I think it's sad because when I started in VR, it was positioned as a promise to be more equitable for underrepresented groups. And there was a real effort to bring in new faces and new talent as a means to open the door to opportunity. So VR was not just a creative platform, it was really a way to change the rules of the game and widening the demographics for who this technology is for. It's for everybody. And so with it going away, a lot of those promises are gone as well, right? It was just an avenue to get into technology, which at the
Yeah,
time had a ton of lucrative jobs, right? And uh, right now in technology, it's just a bloodbath, right? Every day they're cutting people because of the rise of AR.
exactly. It's like the rise of AI has made it so that nobody's gonna have jobs. Lawyers, actually, doctors,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
law,
like all those
everyone's can get it.
yeah, engineers. There's going to be no more coders and all that. And I think that's all a smokescreen. I think people are just laying off people to lay people off
I think so too.
to
Yeah,
save that
I
money,
don't
and they
think
can
it's not.
say it's
Yeah.
AI. It's just diabolical.
The larger point you're making is it's just a shame the industry was and presenting all these great opportunities for different people to be able to jump in. It was an accessible entry point into the tech industry that VR presented. I hear that.
And with that going away, it feels like that potential is going away too, because you don't with the rise of AI, there's just like everybody's at risk. Like it feels like nobody's safe.
The flip side of that, everyone has opportunity. AI is arguably more accessible. I was just having a conversation with Nelda last week. If people want to listen to the last episode talking about communities, we had this insight that kind of came up from this conversation where we feel like AI is actually so much more accessible to build our communities and the community structure, which is critical for innovation at large,
Hmm.
because it's just a laptop. It's a very easy process to build. It's $20 a month.
Anyone can build a business on it. Yeah. That's a good point.
Whereas with VR, you had to be able to afford the headset, you had to be able to afford the game engine, you had to be able to afford the apps to buy, the
A lot of
controllers,
obstacles.
and then you'd have to keep redoing it every 2 years when there's a new headset with the new capabilities that came with it. So it was a moving target, a bar that kept going higher and higher and higher for developers who are wanting to jump in the space. And so while community really helped to we were all in the trenches trauma bonding about how to develop and how to build sustainable businesses off of it with every hit we kept taking. It's just now this 10-year journey for most people who've been in it. And I think, a lot of the VR's dead folks is coming from where it's like a sunk cost valley. People have invested. Even if you didn't literally invest in a product or an idea, just to learn the technology is so high of an investment.
That's a really good point. I think it's a really good point about the cost of the peripherals, and you needed a gaming PC with a really high speed graphics card. The barriers to entry were really high because not
Yeah.
just was the equipment expensive, you had to understand how it all worked together.
Yeah, and that was always a changing thing. You can have a great day where you understand how to port it to your headset and then use the hardware and see how the interactions work, and then the next day that API or SDK is deprecated, or the next day that engine has a bug in it, and so you don't even know, so like the
Or
debugging
you're
process.
building a virtual, let's say you're working on an avatar, and then the avatar system, the business closes, and then you don't have access to your avatar that you've been.
Yeah. So not for the faint of heart. So the original question was, if Meta ceases to exist in the VR world, if they pull out of VR, maybe they just go hard on smart glasses, become super successful, and they decide we're no longer investing in VR, and the next headset is going to be the last headset. I love what you just said, that what does it call it? What is that? The
Steam Deck.
Steam VR. I think that's a huge point. I feel like because I was thinking I forgot that they're coming out, but even though I know it, but
Well, the thing is, they've been delayed, and so no one really knows what's going to happen. I think if Meta pulls out, then it's a signal to the other industries. I don't know that they would try to come in and fill the void, or
yeah,
if they would follow that lead and
yeah.
go harder into glasses.
Yeah. And I will say this, like again, for people who are jumping in or just listening to the conversation, I just want to further reiterate. I'm not saying this is like a very 1% chance that I think Meta will actually jump out within the next 2 years. But I can only be so confident saying that for the next 2 years.
I think that's a really good question to ask, though.
Yeah.
If you are considering yourself, as a futurist, yeah, what would a
Yes.
future without Meta VR look like? I mean, it's reasonable to assume that that's a potential given the direction that they've been going in, and we don't know what's coming out for the headset next
Yeah.
year.
I think it's a
So,
very healthy,
so
question.
I've been
Yeah.
saying Steam Deck, but that's not the right. It's the Steam Frame. The
Thank you. Stream
Steam Deck
frame.
is the handheld,
Yeah.
the mini
Yeah.
game and
Yeah.
uh player, and this is the Steam Frame
Frame.
is wireless, comfortable, lightweight VR for your Steam library.
Okay, so
So,
that I feel like is the only platform that could be comparable to replacing the MetaQuest is a platform like that, Steam Frame essentially, because not only is it gaming, especially when it comes to Meta, that's what I think about using it for. Yes, you can do work stuff, but the games is what really is the core driver to keep going back to the headset, especially social games, but that's different.
mm,
So Steam VR comes out, you could port MetaQuest games to it. You have access
mhm.
to the Xbox games, you have access to even more. So if anything, it's not only comparable, but it feels even more ideal. And it's the fact that it's in a console form, which to me, I've always felt like that should be the case. So you don't have to worry about like all this weight and memory issues and all that kind of stuff on your headset. Like if, especially if the direction of all these HMDs are going in the sense of having like a battery pack that you have to carry anyways,
Mhm.
make it a console. Perfect. I never heard anybody say, dang, I wish my PlayStation didn't have a console. Like it's fine. We'll put a reserved space for it as long as I get to play all my games. So yeah, I feel like, okay, God forbid it happens, but Lord, if it happens, Steam Frame feels like the right swap.
Mhm.
Where I feel like I wouldn't really need to miss anything, especially if I wasn't a Horizon Worlds user, which I don't think is a majority. There's, if anything, there's a lot of people celebrating that Horizon Worlds is not
I was gonna,
yeah,
yeah, I was
yeah,
gonna say, I think that the way that Horizon Worlds was integrated into the overall user experience, when you log onto your Quest headset, you wouldn't see a store or anything. It would just be pushing all these Horizon World games. And so, as an independent developer, if you were publishing a game, you really couldn't compete for discoverability when their primary focus was getting people into Horizon World games. So you were sort of competing with Meta on that point. As a
yeah,
developer, you're trying to sell your game, but when you go to log in, all you're going to see are all these different Horizon worlds that you can go to. And so within the gaming community, there was a huge conflict over that presentation. People felt it was being overexposed. People wanted to just be able to go into their headset, look at their library, go to a store and be able to find games made by third-party developers, not compete with Meta's own platform of user-generated games that were mostly a lot of the free-to-play games. That's really the model right now, and all that your income is coming from the in-game merch and stores and things like that. So it was an internal competition that when Horizon announced that they were moving to mobile, people were really excited. So you'd see
yeah.
people commiserating and being, devastated on
Mhm.
one spectrum of the communities and the threads, and then on the other side, people were really celebrating that and saying, "Finally, thank God," So,
Yeah. Well, I have two things with that though. Like that concept of, oh well, now my game has to compete with a first party app. One, that's a reflection of, or that really is an indicator of the ecosystem being broken,
mhm,
in the sense that uh if you feel like it's a competition, if like it's a scarcity thing, like they're either going to pay $20 for my app, or they're going to go use it for free, then it's like, is your app really that good? Look at it from the consumer perspective, right? The whole, we all want consumers on this platform to grow. And I actually found, and what we have seen in small examples, is sometimes by having a free version of the app gets people so excited of it, it actually drives higher traffic to the higher quality third party app. For example, Break Screen is a very successful app on the platform. I'm pretty sure, I don't know their numbers, but they've been around. It doesn't seem like they're struggling. They're even building headsets now. And every single headset is doing a screen option that's free, that comes natively into the device, or you can open the YouTube app or open, so it's like
Netflix or something. Yeah.
Netflix, right? And it doesn't really, it's healthy competition, but it also really, it's good for the user to have choice. But also, if your app is doing something really different and has a unique value proposition, like I get to go in big screen and I love the environment, I get to meet new people in these different spaces, the performance is really good, the discovery of what people are watching in real time, that is something no other app, at least first party or even singular Disney Plus apps, can compete with. They're growing a market that eventually might find yours and stay there because yours is perfectly positioned for VR.
You just said something. Eventually they'll find it. Maybe. That was the issue. The issue was discoverability.
There has to be a little bit more critical thought there. If people are not discovering it, it's one thing. The consumer is the boss here. I'm not going to censor the developer feelings. I'm going to censor the consumer. What is good for the consumer is good for the developer and the platform eventually. So if the consumer has choice and they were never going to play your game,
but they can't even find your game. That was the whole point. They couldn't even find it because it was buried under all the Horizon Worlds, stuff.
Okay, for example, we'll use the Fisherman's Bay app, right? That's a successful Horizon World, but there's also a fishing app that's also very successful.
Fishing VR, yeah.
Fishing VR.
Okay.
I don't know how much of a hit they took by Fisherman's Bay, but that has, from what I know, has been a very top-selling game from the arc of time. If the argument is, oh, ever since they made that world visible on the thing, our sales have took a dip, that's different. But if they're saying people can't discover our game, that's easy to say, but I want to hear the data numbers of that. So if they had competing apps and they were made it for free with your app, then by definition they should have been successful, right? Clearly that was not the case.
The store was trying to capture a particular kind of audience. And so if you weren't serving what that audience was about, which is free to play games, then you weren't going to be featured.
We're going to save Horizon World.
It felt like they were driving everyone to Horizon Worlds. Like you couldn't,
they didn't. They didn't.
They didn't want it. Yeah, they didn't, but they were pushing it. But then developers naturally felt on the sidelines because of that. And
that's what I'm saying. That's indicating of a broken system, because I think of the Apple Store then, if you want to be more one-to-one, Apple has its own apps, but as a developer, I can still compete well and I still make enough money because the ecosystem is abundant. There's a lot of people going to it for random things and people want choice. Consumers want choice. And I feel like they were just trying to replicate that on that platform.
But search wasn't even good. I don't know. It just... If you look at a lot of the threads, developers were upset for a long time. And I think some criticism is valid. Some criticism, to your point, could be not meeting the demands of what the users wanted. And so naturally you're not going to be as discoverable. But I think that was the challenge. That's what the developers would complain about, was that the search was not good. The placement was not good. Like, it wasn't a good experience for developers. It wasn't a good experience for users because they had to sift through all this Horizon stuff. And even the Horizon worlds that they were pushing weren't necessarily some of the, they'd have these random places that nobody was in, or something. So I think there's a lot to unpack there because everyone's going to have their own unique perspective depending on what kind of game that they were developing. But when you look at comments in the articles around Horizon going away, many developers were really excited because
that's what I said.
So,
but I bet if it goes away, I would now want to see if their numbers jump because, like I said, it exists.
Good point. You would. Does it?
So this will be the true test, because VR being centered around Horizon Worlds has only been around for like a year and a half, maybe. So that maybe they took a hit during that year and a half, but now that's gone. You don't have to worry about that. So
no more excuses.
Yeah, no more excuses.
You got to perform.
Let's not pretend. Yeah. So going back to your experience, you were a product manager of a social VR app. Tell me more about what that product was.
AlcoveVR is an award-winning social VR app for intergenerational families to get together in VR in a closed, safe environment. It was a free app on the Quest with a few in-game purchases that you could make for content. It was developed by AARP, which is the American Association for Retired Persons, and that their whole goal is to help people live and stay independent for as long as possible. And so they saw VR as a vehicle to empower older generations to continue to explore from their homes. So you would launch Alcove into your own personal apartment, and then you would connect with family members or friends through basically calling them and inviting them to come over to your place. And from there, each room in the apartment had different activities. So in the living room, you could watch TV, private programs, your own videos that you uploaded. We had a family gallery where you could upload your own photographs, and then a games table where you could play brain health games, things to improve cognition or alertness. We also had a travel room, and that was really the most where most of the activity happened. And it was just wonderful. Thousands and thousands of 360 video tours of places all around the world. And so they saw VR as a vehicle to empower older generations to continue to explore from their homes and get out and engage with technology in a way that would help them connect with their families. So with that, it was different from exploring other social VR worlds through being in an open space, right, where you could just run into anyone. This was, you had to opt in by calling someone to invite them to be a part of your environment.
When did it launch?
Launched on the Quest on August 2020. Cesara Windrum deserves a lot of credit for the passion and determination and dedication that she gave to this app that made it so powerful for thousands and thousands of users to connect during the pandemic, because this was peak pandemic. So
Yes.
people were connecting, doing virtual road trips. We would hear constantly from families about how they were able to connect with family members in a way that they almost couldn't even do in real life. There was something about just being in these spaces that the barriers came down and they were able to have conversations.
Curious as to what you found was successful in that experience, because it was a social VR experience, and what it sounds like it still exists, so it is still successful.
No, well, we always go back to this idea of success and what is success. And for programs like AlcoveVR within a larger membership organization, adoption is crucial. We had really great adoption within VR, but within the overall organization and the kinds of people that they reach, it was a fraction of what they were trying to accomplish.
For
And
Alcove.
for
Yeah.
for AARP in general, right? So
Okay.
they were, Alcove was more of like an experimental test to see how this technology works, how it would work within the frameworks of serving older generations, people over 65, over 50.
It doesn't sound like this particular
It,
app was designed to be a billion user type of,
they would
kind
have
of
been more than
solution.
happy to have a billion users. It
Right.
was really, it was, sometimes I thought of it as a social VR with training wheels,
Yeah.
because it was, they were prioritizing comfort over bells and whistles. But
Right.
um, it was really impressive what Alcove was able to achieve within
Okay.
its sphere of influence.
What problem does social VR solve better than anything else?
A way to connect with people when you can't be there physically. For instance, during the pandemic,
Yeah.
you couldn't have Burning Man, right? And so you
Right.
had virtual Burning Man.
Well, for you, because you've been in social spaces and Facebook spaces, you used to have a podcast in there when that came out in 2015 or 2016, I believe. You've been a huge Gorilla Tag user. I remember
Yeah, I
only
was
reason I
getting it,
know. Yeah,
spending a lot of time there.
yeah, but I don't think if I ever tried it on my own, I would have known that in the first how to even get to the game, because they don't tell you
There's
that you
no
need to
rules.
act like a
They just
gorilla.
drop you. Yeah, they just drop you into a
in this dark corner. You're like, don't know where you are. And then you were there and you're like, move your hands like a gorilla, like walk. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, that's how I move. And like you're jumping. And then like I finally see the world and it's like, cool. And then you were showing me like how to buy stuff. And the stuff was
The
really cool.
store.
And yeah, the store, how to play games
You
and
could just
how
spend
the
time in the store without ever playing a game of tag and
Right.
gorilla
It was very
tag.
fun because they let you try on things and you could see it in the mirror. Obviously, everyone was a gorilla that looked the same. So, how would you make yours particularly unique with the stuff they had in the store? I remember jumping up trees. There was a scale game where it's like you see this train and you can like change the size of your gorilla to be a giant
Oh
and it has
yeah.
to chase you and look for you as a little tiny gorilla. Like it was so playful, fun, imaginative, very low quality in terms of graphic fidelity, which which a lot of these first party platforms, try to correct. However, it was wildly successful. Gorilla Tag is still today one of the most successful, if not the most successful apps on the platform. So there's different types of social VR, right? Gaming social VR, which is like it's a game, but it's a
It's an
social
open
game.
sandbox too. So the Gorilla Tag's evolved where you can create your own maps and you can start to co-build with other players.
Yes. There's some other ones like Orion Drift, and there's like newer apps that are come out to that has followed that model. But Gorilla Tag was a game changer in that sense. But probably rivals or is on a VR version level of Roblox and Fortnite, no? Kind of.
Um, I don't know
Different
if it's
scale.
I don't know if it's changed, but Roblox has its own digital economy where creators can create sell their
Boastability.
wares and sell things. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure if Gorilla Tag has established that yet, where people can make their own props and sell them in
Yeah.
the store. So I would
So
say
UGC content is
would be
missing in Gorilla Tag.
the biggest
Yeah.
differentiator. Yeah, it's a lot of role playing games. So people, it's the game is tag when you're in there, but people go in there and play mini games or they invent
Yeah.
things or it's role playing,
Yeah.
and which is
Yeah.
massive on Roblox.
And then you have like the social apps that are UGC oriented, where you can create worlds, you can visit other worlds that other people created, and it's a social experience. Some people have created games, some people just created something artsy, but you go into it and
Nightclubs.
you tour guided me in VR chat as well. I remember you took me to like some Japanese cherry blossom garden or
Oh
something
my
like
God, that would have
that.
been a
And
long time ago.
a long time ago. I think it was like during COVID,
Yeah.
probably. VR Chat and Rec Room have been the two most successful social VR free play kind of experiences, UGC oriented worlds on the platform. However, they both also have had their own significant shares of layoffs at some point. So I'm not sure.
Well,
I
Rec Room
haven't
has
listened
had
to
a
other.
lot of layoffs recently. I'm not sure about VR chat, but Rec Room seems like it was more geared towards children. I was watching this one YouTuber talk about the Horizon Worlds, VR chat, and Rec Room and said that Rec Room suffered from too much greed by trying to just monetize everything. And so that when you
Mm,
go in there, the first thing they're doing is just trying to sell you a bunch of things that are expensive with the tokens. And then Horizon just suffered from not being engaging enough. Like it
yeah.
was trying to be too many things at
Hmm.
once, and it didn't do any of them well. And
Hmm.
so, but it cost a lot at a high cost. And then VR chat was just completely degenerate. And it succeeded because it's really not moderated. It's just free to do kind of whatever you want. People are able to just express themselves in all these different ways, but primarily, okay, I'm going to read this because it was really funny. So in this video, he says VR chat is a dating app for cat girls with daddy issues and voice changes. So, so it's,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but that's where, most people will say that there's far more benefits to VR chat than there are the negatives. And so when you're exploring VR worlds, VR chat usually comes to mind as the place to go because it's kind of the only place left
Yeah.
that's where you're always going to find someone in the game. It's not like
Yeah.
a ghost town. So,
Right.
and it's an open world exploration, whereas some other social VR apps are more for seminars or for meetups and
Yeah.
conferences where you're opting in and it's invite only.
And then the last kind of social experience is the games that are not necessarily designed for social, but but they add a social component to it.
Walkabout,
So
mini golf, right? Yeah.
exactly. or and Beat Saber is another one where it's like you
Real
can play it
fishing.
solo. Yeah. I don't I haven't tried real fishing, but yeah, maybe that also too, where it's designed for solo, but you have the option of going social. And those are actually the ones that I find more fun. I love playing games in general that I have the option of being social or I can just do it
Hmm.
solo. I would start to do things on my own, and then once I've finished the campaign or done it all myself, then I'd start to explore the social aspects of it and start to build community over time. And so I love that format. There's been other social apps that I've felt like AltSpace. Why do you think
AltSpace.
AltSpace failed?
Yeah, it was
Like,
incredible. I mean, it was just so
yeah,
much fun. It's gone. But because it's gone, this is what happens. It fractures the community, sort of like what happened with when Twitter went to X, right? A lot of people left the platform and started going to Mastodon, or they went to Threads, or they went, they went other places. And so there was
yeah,
this no longer sense of cohesion,
yeah,
um, and wondering where certain communities went and what they chose. And so that fracture is happening within social VR. So when AltSpace went away, some people got rid of their headsets. They said, I only got this headset so I could be in AltSpace. I'm not interested in any other platform. Some people migrated to VR chat. If you go to Horizon Worlds on Facebook in their community groups, you'll see people trying to create their own social VR platforms or promoting different places. Here's the issue is you cannot just pick up your digital file of your world and transfer it and click and drag it over to the desktop and open it in another
yeah,
software.
yeah.
You almost have to rebuild it from scratch, and that's why you run into these emotional challenges around
Yeah,
like.
this is why I think there's a lot of emotions tied to this because whenever you're building something for a place and you're putting your heart and your soul and you're creating something from scratch, and then this platform gives you the tools to do it and it's going to host it for you. You've built something that's dependent on the platform. So you are putting a lot of time and investment and energy and emotions, and you're creating experiences, and especially when you're in an immersive experience like that, it's embodying.
That's the key word.
It gets you
Yeah, it's
deeper.
embodied.
Yeah.
You feel
Yeah.
it viscerally, and so
Viscerally.
the community that you build there is not just something you can turn on and off like a light switch. And that's where I think the companies really struggle to understand that level of commitment and enthusiasm and evangelism, right? Because everyone within those spaces was an evangelist for the platform. Uh,
And the platform was an evangelist. This is where we have to have a balanced conversation because this company is also investing hundreds and billions of dollars or whatever, quote unquote, to make in this space. And they're investing in hiring the best talent to give them the best tools to be able to do this thing. And they're trying to promote those artists' works on these platforms and to developers' dismay. It's a mutual investment. Different scales, but same visceral feeling. So I think sometimes we look at these platforms and think, oh, we forget that there's humans behind it, and they're also hoping this is it too. That's why it exists. When you're building this stuff, there's sunk cost fallacy on both sides. We both don't want to let go, but it's hurting, but it's not working. And in order for this relationship, this codependent relationship to work, is we have to get a billion more people in it.
you need traction.
Yes, so this could survive. And that is something we as users are not taken into consideration. We believe and we hope what you have here, I believe this can be to the next thing. So I'm going to go ahead and invest all of it. But if that person's like, hey, this didn't work, we have to accept the reality of that. Okay, we took this leap, but we didn't have full control over it. So this is a real reality that can happen where this rug can be slipped at our feet. We have to hope that the person who was in it with us, that committed to us, would be nice enough to give us a rollout or to kind of keep us in the loop with, hey, how things are going, or not oversell, so that way we could diversify. I think VR is really unique in this way. I don't know what a parallel model is. Like if I build a
But if I
website
have
and I use
HTML and I have a model, especially now, you could just use AI and say, okay, can you give me the code for this format of a website? I mean, everything is already in a template that will work. It's cross-platform. That's a major pain point for these social VR platforms, is that they're not interoperable. And you can have a dream of being interoperable, but until that happens, every time that the world dies, you have to rebuild it, and you just have photographs of your memories. It's like,
yes, you're building your castle on sand, and
and
that's what
that's
VR is right now. Yeah.
why I didn't really go all in into Horizon when the the pain of losing Facebook Spaces, which was a closed
Yeah.
environment, not an open world. It was really
Yeah.
just 360, nothing like what Horizon Worlds became in terms of being able to build your own world and explore different three-dimensional spaces. I had so much attachment to those avatars, to the user interface, to all the features and fun things that we could do in there, that when Horizon came out, I just didn't trust it. I wanted to like it, but I'm like, I've gotten burned and I don't want to spend my time learning how to use all these tools that they're going to just take away anytime they decide. And
Yeah.
so while I explored it and enjoyed the time that I had with it, I never really went all in because I just knew that it probably would not end well. I wouldn't be able to export my worlds in any meaningful way that would help me move on to other platforms.
And that's the key right there. You didn't see a way where this could live without being dependent on this platform to keep it alive, because you've already experienced that the platform can, shelve things that you
Yeah.
put a lot into. You looked at it and you said, this new iteration on the same platform, if it were to get shelved, can I at least keep my work? And you saw, I don't see these ways for me to take my work and leave. So therefore, I'm not going to invest into this as much as I would have if I knew that this could survive beyond whether or not the
That I
platform
could
exists or
open
not.
this file in any other platform. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's impossible to do. It's technically challenging and
Yeah.
it's more work. And sometimes like it's just not worth it, right? You build something in it and then you get it to as good as it's going to be. And then by the time you have to move it over, you're like, you know what? I want to do something else. Or I
Yeah.
want to, like, I don't want to reinvent something that I already spent all this time building to put into another world, because there is that, like, at least for me, you start to wonder, well, what happens when that goes away? And so it actually just kind of put me off building in general and more just like, how can I just participate and have fun without
Yeah.
having to be a world designer? And it actually just made me kind of go back to analog. I'd rather just prefer go back to writing, right? Because writing
Yeah.
is, you're building a world and you don't even need any electricity. There's no upgrades. It's literally a pen and a paper. So I, I just mean that, like, so many things can be conceived of as immersive without needing VR. And you kind of come full circle and realize that, yeah, some things
What's a
can't.
reliable way for me to express myself and not, and also be able to keep that work forever, like under your
It's
control?
not even, I mean, yeah, it's not even that it has to be forever, because there's always updates and those kinds of things within, your apps. So you're always having to maintain that. Thinking about social VR got me thinking about, well, why was I even in love with VR in the first place? Like, what was
Hmm.
that initial hook that got me in those aha moments? It was Facebook Spaces and just being in a digital environment by myself. It was
Hmm.
actually just sort of I felt like I was in a cocoon, and so
Hmm.
I felt sort of cradled and it felt very safe there,
Hmm.
in a chaotic time. So there was
Hmm.
just a lot of chaos. And in fact, I remember when they were having I don't even think it was Connect. I think it was F8 or something, when they
Hmm.
announced Spaces and they started looking at some of the group avatars together. When they announced Spaces, I was gonna close my Facebook account. I was like, I'm done with Facebook. I'm too overwhelmed. I need to kind of just focus on other things and not on the noise of the outside world. But let me just see this conference really quick, this live stream. And then they announced Spaces, and I was like downloading it as they were talking about it. I'm like, oh no, I got
Oh,
to go in there. And then the VR
yeah.
selfie is what got me hooked. I was like, this is crazy. It was much more
Yeah.
integrated into the Facebook platform than
I love
Horizon
that.
was.
Yeah.
And the ability to creating content. There
Yeah.
were so many different things that you could
It
do. And
gave
it
you a
was just,
platform. Yeah.
it just,
And it gave you a way to represent yourself in a way that you didn't have to worry about what you look like, because you're just using your avatar. Like, I
yeah,
love
like I
that,
didn't
being
have
able to,
freckles anymore,
yeah.
like I could just have smooth skin and I didn't need to put on makeup. I love the lighting. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and there wasn't this pressure of like, again, this pressure of like, it has to perform, it has to monetize, it has to do all these things. It was really just a playground where I could connect with friends and we could have fun together without having we have to build this thing. Now that we've
Okay.
built
So
this thing,
you,
we have to draw people in and have events. And that's
yeah.
great. And I love that too. And I loved that a lot about AltSpace and creating events. But there was this pressure sometimes that if you built a world, then suddenly you have to build a whole community around it so people
Yeah.
would come, right? So you had
Yeah.
traffic. And in spaces, it wasn't like that. It was more one-to-one connecting with people that you already knew. But that didn't really provide the kind of growth that VR and social VR needed, right? To
Yeah.
scale. It needs
Yeah.
you to have an open world where you can connect with people from around the world instead of just staying in your own little bubble. And
Yeah.
that's what I liked about Spaces. It was a little bubble.
Yeah, so it's Facebook Spaces, for anyone who doesn't remember, that came out in 2015 or 16. It was oriented around the Oculus Rift. The worlds we were surrounded by were 360 photos and 360 YouTube videos that you could just upload or from the internet. Okay, so do you remember your first social
It
VR
was
experience?
AltSpace. I was
Alt
at a,
Space.
yeah, okay. Well, my first social VR experience was in AltSpace at a River Studios meetup. So it was just one of the booths that was
Hmm.
showing demos. It was hard to get into for me at first because I
Okay.
remember I went into a virtual room and then there was this robot avatar that came really close to me and I felt completely invaded. I felt like my space was complete and it freaked me
Yeah.
out. And I didn't
Yeah.
go back for months. I didn't go back to
Wow.
AltSpace for months because I just had this feeling, this creepy feeling. And it really stayed with me. And it was, it wasn't like I was traumatized, but it was a visceral experience that was so negative that I avoided the space altogether for months. And then,
Wow.
then I got over it. Right. And then you're like, I was in one world where someone was just like breathing heavily in my ear. And I was just like, okay, trolls are just trying to get reactions and
Yeah.
you grow desensitized to a lot of it. But that's why it's so, you have to be careful with those first encounters because if you have a negative impression the first time, you won't go back.
That's already a big issue for VR because that's such
Mhm.
a powerful technology that it has over your psyche when you're embodied in this immersive experience. Then you bring in the social. The social is a whole new level of activation for your brain because now all these same rules that wouldn't happen in real world are now possible in the VR. They're playing with that reality. But if you are still learning and still trying to figure out what's happening, and especially as women, where feeling safe physically is a really big thing for us. And you're in these environments, you feel vulnerable, and it can be a lot on your first go. Even though that person's not really next to you in real life, them stepping into your personal space gives you the same feeling as if I'm vulnerable to something negative happening. You're someone, you came back because you've already put your investment into the VR as an industry. I'm going to try to make it work because you probably were in the communities in the real world and you were invested in the technology as like your access to getting to
It
tech finally,
Well,
right? And
it was more that my curiosity outweighed my fear, right? Like it was like that
right.
was one person, they're not still there hiding, lurking, right? Like when I go back,
Yeah.
they're gone. Also, I'm not it's not native to the way that I play games or the way that I engage in digital worlds. So I think this next generation, the alpha generation, is natively in these digital spaces in games like Roblox. And so they have much more experience in navigating these
Mm.
worlds. They're not as hesitant or they might not feel as vulnerable or they might
Yeah.
already be a part of communities of around consent or things that cyber safety, right?
I mean, I do think there's a difference playing 2D games versus being in VR. And now they can physically make me feel violated without actually having to
Be in the same
physically
room.
same
Yeah,
room,
well,
you
your
know?
mind doesn't know the difference.
Yes, the mind being able to separate when you're playing on a 2D world, it doesn't feel as risky. It's more like, oh, what are you doing to my character? When you're embodied in it, it just creates it's a whole new level of cognitive vulnerability that you have to navigate. So to this next point that I wanted to bring that to is when we talk about why social VR has not been able to be as successful in social spaces as these 2D app platforms. One, they are hindered by hardware. Two, adoption in general of the platform. But three, there is this embodied element that introduces a different way of navigating and being and feeling that presents much more psychological risk, much more
Emotional. Yeah.
emotional risk, and there's less hand holding, less guidance, less
Moderation.
monitoring, less enforcement of rules. This is something I know for a fact culturally is underplayed and seen as not big of a deal. It's underestimated how much these little tiny moments that 100 people new to this space that might try out this app and might have experienced something off that decided never to come back, and it adds up to you this not being able to grow. When I think of Horizon Worlds, my experiences were fun when I was ever going to Oculus Connect events, hanging out with my friends who are already working VR or affiliated with VR, and saying like, "Hey, do you want to play a game?" But I never felt comfortable just going to a space where I didn't know anybody, because usually once they find out I'm a girl or they see my avatar as a girl, or they hear
Mm,
my voice, it does attracts a lot of attention that I don't know where the conversation is going to go. Am I going to get bullied? Or somebody going to be
harassment.
weird? Yes. And it was always like 50-50 chance, it felt like. So after a while, your brain remembers that. So I'm no longer feeling motivated to go into that space.
Safe. I mean, I'm sure they have moderation tools, but I think they basically take the approach that there's only so much we can do. Most people that enjoy VR chat know that there's that component of role playing and, as this person said, dating that goes on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you find your own. You can create your own private instances where it's not an open world, so that you have some control over the people coming in and out of the world that you're engaged in at that time. So there are moderation tools, but I think for the most part, people understand that it's pretty much anything goes. There's no real way to separate the children from the adults. That's a real problem, the same as it is in Roblox. There's just a lot of opportunity for predation. And policy and regulation has not caught up with that until these recent court cases that around Meta and Google and YouTube for protecting users that just came out last week. So it's, the end
Yeah.
of
I
March
wouldn't be
now, but
surprised. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that also had something to do with the Horizon Worlds decision. But, um,
interesting you
uh,
should mention. That's a whole other separate show.
yeah. You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
mean,
But
you could, I have a lot of video, even within Gorilla Tag, I have a lot of video of stuff. I'm like, one day I might publish on just how no holds barred kind of behavior goes on in there. But it's all part of this digital world that's anything goes. It could be really shocking going into some of these worlds unprotected.
when I think of VR chat, I don't remember anything really happening to me. Never felt vulnerable to the same degree that I did in, let's say, Rec Room, maybe, or Big Screen. Big Screen, I feel like a lot of things happen. And the reason why I say that is because I think you can have safety in the design of the experience. And what I mean by that is in VR chat, I don't think I ever looked like myself. The avatars were non-humanoid, so it was more expressions of your identity rather than an actual physical representation. So because of that, it already removed the element of social, like, bullying in the
Mm,
sense of like, oh, you're a woman, you're a man, or you're short, or whatever. Like
yeah,
there's
you're a
something
hot
about
dog.
that kind of, yeah, you're a hot dog and you're like, a pony on a rainbow and like talking to each
Yeah.
other. So it's like it already just moved that element. So I think it added something to the environment where it was less trolly, less hostily, for at least for me. And it was more so like, okay, now that we don't have these identities, but we're just expressions, what are we doing in this space? And it felt imaginatory. It kind of guided this feeling of playfulness. Um, Whereas I feel like there are some apps like Big Screen, which does give you representations, very, very loose representation of your actual real physical identity. When you get into these environments, like you're in a movie theater, I would find a lot of people doing really weird stuff in the seats. It kind of invited like this weird gross behavior
Like
that often I saw when I go
perverse
too
kind of
often.
activity. Yeah,
Perverse.
yeah.
Yeah. you could sit behind somebody too and not even know that somebody's right behind you because of the field of view. And so like people would do things to each other like like joking. And again, you're in a dark space, and by design, sometimes you can mitigate a lot of these issues, social issues or barriers. There's a lot of apps that didn't prioritize for that. Ecorina to me was very traumatic in that sense, but I think that's something to consider too, in terms of why they fail and why they don't, in terms of scale and adoption. So, who do we think is asking for social VR?
People who can't get out of their house for whatever reason, whether it be location wise or somewhere far away, and people that are separated by distance. It's definitely for them. It's for people that have wanted to see the top of Mount Everest, but don't either have the physical stamina, the funds or the resources to
That's
get there.
99% of us, by the way.
Right,
99.5%.
right. Or for instance, let's say
We just want to see it without climbing.
I don't travel the way that I used to, and part of it is expense, part of it is time and convenience. There is this layer of this climate change or climate
But that's not
crisis.
social VR. That's just
No,
regular
no,
VR.
no.
Because you use social VR heavily. So what did you use social VR for the most?
Okay, my my favorite world in Horizon, and it's a Titanic experience in Horizon where you go in and you see the ship
I remember
hit the
that. I was in
iceberg.
it.
Yeah.
So that's still not necessarily a social VR experience as much as it's just like a really cool world.
It's a reenactment. It's a historical reenactment. Right.
So
And
you're reenacting with a whole bunch of other people?
yeah. And so, but then people do role playing games on the ship. So,
Okay.
like,
So that's what you loved about it, being able to role play with other people.
just being able to mess around, and just like I would act like a steward on the ship and I'd be like,
Yeah.
no cause for alarm. Everything's going to be okay. There's a little ding on the ship. Just go back to your stateroom. It's going to be fine. And people are like, it's
Oh
going
my
to
gosh.
sink. It's going to sink.
Oh my
Just
gosh. No, role playing is a big one. You hit something on the head there, where like I remember one of the most famous worlds in Horizon Worlds was the courtroom.
oh yeah,
Like,
meta court, yeah.
yeah. And it was so fun. Like you could like sit in the judge's chair. Like people would take turns playing like witness or juror or lawyer. And they actually had times where everyone could come in and watch a case. When I think about that, like, and I think who asked for that?
It's for kids that have time to play those games, and then for the adults that maybe want to unwind and play. But then you have the top complaint is that it gets ruined by kids that just come in.
Really?
And so
Okay.
I
I have
think
a
that's
friend.
the biggest challenge with social VR spaces is making sure that they're age appropriate.
Yeah. When I first so I remember back in the day when with Oculus in the Oculus Go era.
I love Oculus Go. I'm so
Yeah.
sad. I love that
Yeah.
headset.
And remember that headset was like $180. I'm looking at it right now. Actually, let me bring it.
That was where I did some of my best building was on a Go headset. I know people didn't think it was real VR because it had a, little single hand controller, but
Oh, but that's like saying it's not real VR because it doesn't have a feet tracker
yeah.
or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it was immersive enough. Anyways, and so when these came out, I think I bought like 3 of them.
They were really easy to come by. I have like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, and I remember giving them to my friends for Christmas. I was like, okay, now we can play with each other. And how you described AlcoveVR as like the home, you can watch TV, you can put up photos. Like the Oculus Go home environment was exactly that. Because she lived in Fremont and I was living in San Francisco at the time. Between working full time, we don't really get to see each other so much. So sometimes when we do our phone calls, instead of doing it on the phone, we'd meet up in VR on the Oculus Go. I would go to her place. She had her photos up on her wall of both of us because we literally all use Oculus Go for each other. And then when we're just wanting to chat, we'll go play card games with each other. And she loves playing card games. And so then I started asking her later, like, hey, do you ever use the headset? Not just for us. And she was like, I use it almost every day. I was like, what do you use it for? She was like, oh, I love playing poker in it. Like, she uses the Poker Stars app. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, I did not know you played poker, number one. Two, that was the thing that got her using the headset regularly was Poker Stars. She didn't play anything else. I don't know why it couldn't have been mainstream because that was such a fun feature for us. But it just got too frictiony. Like, I remember during COVID, VR fit like that perfect opening window of like everyone is stuck at home when we all miss having experiences in the real world. So VR is supposed to, explode now, right? We had a group of 18 of us, entrepreneurs or designers, whatever. We started coordinating weekly movie nights in VR. And I remember between whoever would come, it would be like 8 to 10 people a week. It always took a minimum of 30 minutes
Mm.
for us to finally get in the same room, have their
And then
headsets
just start
charged,
hanging out.
and start hanging out. We would say we're meeting up at 8 p.m. and everybody would get on their headsets. Oh, my controller is dead. Oh, I thought it was charging this whole time. Oh, I can't get into the room. What room are you in? Oh, the password's not working for me. Oh, I have to update the app. Oh,
Oh my
my
God.
headset needs to update.
Nobody's asking for that.
Yeah, nobody was asking for that. It was never easy.
By the time you could connect, you ran out of time. You were like, okay, I gotta
Yeah.
go now. It's that kind of friction that could create with like this like mental block of like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, I want to meet up with my friends, but I remember the last time it was just too much trouble and I don't want to deal with that again.
And we were very intentional. We're
Yeah,
all
right. We wanted
VR
to do it.
experts. We wanted to do it. And I think we lasted for like 6 months before we were like, let's just go meet on Zoom.
And then you were trying to like drink your coffee with your headset on and you were like trying to like, like you
Yeah, you
couldn't
can't
like,
multitask. Yeah. We touched on the imagination, being able to role play with other people, having that quick access to other people to play with. And again, because you're an avatar, it allows for you to play. Like, I don't think I could do that same level of play if I was in a real room. In London, they have a lot of immersive rooms, like escape rooms that you can play with strangers. And I would feel very awkward doing that.
that.
Yeah. But if I'm in VR doing an escape room with people, I remember playing Among Us during COVID in VR. That was so fun. That environment allows you to be a kid again with no sense of feeling weird about it. Everyone's doing it. Then you have being able to communicate in different spaces when you're not in the same physical environment, right? Being able to have that shared experience with your grandfather in a different country and watch a movie or watch a game. Like these are all
creating memories. Yeah.
Creating memory when you can't meet in real life. So these are all what social VR promises. That sense of connection, that sense of belonging, that sense of community that you can access really quickly when you can't get that in real life, especially if you're a vulnerable demographic. So knowing that, is the version of social VR that would scale actually the version we want? So
No.
really? I don't even understand the question. Actually the version we want. Ooh, interesting.
Because it's what we see with Roblox, right? Like it's just this free-for-all role-playing, self-sustaining economy that creators can generate for themselves. But that was one thing that I always thought about, even early days of Horizon. When it's small and intimate, it has a different kind of life than when it scales. It's like, oh, you've changed since you've gotten famous because what's popular isn't always what's compelling for you. When I started to see Horizon scale in the way that it was mini games. It was clone games. And for me, that was never really the reason to go into VR was not to play games with other people. I always wanted something actually quite stationary. I always just enjoyed having an activity that I could do and then talk to my friends, right? Which would be like a nail salon or something, that kind of experience where, where like a beauty salon or something like, but it's not
role play doing each other's doing nails.
Yeah, but it's not, exactly. Or I could just change my nails or I could change my appearance or like a part of the reason why I liked being in social VR was because I could express myself through my avatar and what I was wearing.
The reason why social VR can't scale today is because you have to be very, 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 very intentional in order to play it. And unfortunately, because of that, the people who are very, very, very intentional to play in it, which is mostly kids and probably mostly gamers, which in of itself, these communities are not necessarily the most welcoming to everybody joining. Playing with kids is one thing.
Right, then the adults, right. People are not always on their best behavior. Like you're not going to go to social VR for social grace and manners.
Yeah.
Right?
So what would be needed for me is like the Beat Saber that also has a multiplayer component, or Demio is another one. Those are the ones that I would love to play in every day, where we're there to play a specific activity. That is the goal, and that's all you can do. And then you can have that shared experience with whoever is also excited to play that game that I'm into. The most recent thing that I was into that I really loved was the power washing one.
I love power washing. I love that one. It's so relaxing.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. I was so sad to hear that the developers
Discontinued the
discontinued.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is shocking to me because I feel like they must have had the most engaged users. Everyone I know that used it
Loved that
was like
game.
obsessed with
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And it was just like,
Oh,
why is
really?
this so relaxing?
Yeah, it was so satisfying. But yeah, I think that to me is what a successful game that has a social component. Gorilla Tag was fun with you because I was going with you. I knew it was intentional with someone I was going to play with, but I wouldn't go to it not knowing
So
anybody.
you feel that to scale, there should already be a person that you know, a community you want to be a part of versus dropping in and just trying to make friends in a chat
Yeah.
room.
I think, and which is ironic, right? As an introvert, you would think that that's what it's for. Like, oh, you're an introvert, so now here's a social space to meet people, and that should be easier for me. I actually find it quite opposite.
Well,
It's
because
similar
of
to
the
real life.
vulnerability issue.
Yes. The vulnerability, not knowing who everyone is, what are they there for? Like there's no commonality, like shared like yeah, you're here, but like so what do you do? Like you can't even talk because nobody wants to reveal data about themselves. Like, where are you
Uh,
from? Like one last anecdote was like my obsessed game in 2017-18 was playing Dead and Buried, which was a shooter
oh,
game. I would play 1 hour every day, like
oh
7
wow.
p.m. every single day, for the most of the year 2018. This is when I had the startup, so that was like my break. And when I would go into that game and I got really good, I start to see the same familiar people all the time. We would get into the same, oh, it's a one-on-one, we'd have to do a shootout. So then you start to see these familiar faces. Some of them were on my levels. It was the right level of challenge. And then after about 3 months of seeing each other, we never spoke. Mind you, you could use your voice. We never spoke to each other. We just saw each other and we'd be like, hey, body language. And I felt bonded to him, even though we never spoke. Him and there was another girl. The other girl joined. And then finally, I think it was like the 3 month mark, somebody broke the silence and said, I haven't seen you in a while. What happened? And I'm like, we're gonna talk. And I remember feeling like I was like, oh yeah. So then we all started talking, and there was like little things said every day by day. It was until like the fourth or fifth month that finally I was like, where are you based? And we were happy to talk. We were happy to like, oh, what did you do today? Like da da da. But we were very hesitant to actually reveal our real identities. Like it
Yeah,
never
because
crossed our
then
mind.
all of the real world, challenges come in and you don't want to, you're there for a break. Everyone's so polarized now. And it's just, yeah, where are you from? Oh, everyone's sort of identity politics now sort of supersedes that,
Yeah.
the supersedes engagement so that when you're in a game, it's just more peaceful and restful if you could just not talk about what's happening in the outside world. Because as soon as you say where you're from, someone's got an
Somebody can
idea
dox you.
about, yeah, someone's got an idea about what you're about.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about games is they bring people together and they overcome all those things. And I think social VR can be a place where that happens. I mean, there's also the film that came out a few years ago called We Met in VR and
Yeah.
talks about how you see a survey of all these different communities in VR chat and kind of go beyond stereotypes of what you think these kinds of places can be, where they can express themselves and feel safe.
Yeah. Oh, Apple just launched an interesting social experience with their personas. And I think it's like a speed dating model called Aura.
Most of Apple too, Apple's approaches social VR in a very different way. It's very opt-in too, where you have to connect with someone because you're already connected with them. In general, most of their apps in their developer kits, they have these templates in the way that you engage socially. So it's more of a theatrical experience than they have one where it's a co-working type of engagement. And everyone in an Apple app will have their same persona avatar, which is based off of a photo or a scan of their face. So there's no real anonymity in the social VR world of Apple. It's very,
Yeah.
very different.
Aura Tap is an upcoming social network. It's not exactly a social platform in the traditional sense,
Hmm.
where users meet shared virtual environments to chat and play games together, even though they have that capability, interestingly enough. Instead, members join short video calls with other Vision Pro users, of course, using the headset's exclusive persona system, which serve up photorealistic avatars featuring eye and mouth tracking. So the selling point, though, is that chats start out lasting only 2 minutes, putting you on something of a temporary trial basis if you're both vibing with the conversation and independently choose to connect. The call clock disappears and you can carry on with making a new friend. So I feel like that would
The
be awkward.
speed
So it's like speed
dating.
dating.
Speed
Yeah.
dating and meets chat roulette.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious, like, and I don't know how many users they have in Oppo Persona Pro, but I know for concurrency is always an issue in general with being able to see your friends in a headset if they have the same, if you're lucky enough to have a friend with the headset. They're definitely created a solution for strangers, which I think is what social VR is supposed to be, because I feel like when you're in VR it can feel lonely at times, or you want to have a shared experience with others, like
Yeah,
going to a concert with other people that are real people there. So that to me is
that's fair.
where I find the social aspect very valuable to me in the headset. So this Persona one seems it's going to be very intimate. uh
Or one-on-one.
Yeah, literally the only reason I use Apple Vision Pro right now for two reasons. One is to watch Disney Plus because I really love superhero stuff.
I think
But
most people are using the Apple Vision Pro for watching movies.
yeah,
I mean,
for watching movies, yeah.
but
Disney
then
Plus, I
you
guess
can't watch them with
specifically.
anyone else. So, it's like,
That,
but you watch them like you take them on a plane. They're really good for that.
yeah. But I do use it to hang out with a couple of other friends that I have that also have the Apple headset. They're in Louisiana and I'm in London, so that's our way of chatting. But outside of that, well, would I want to meet strangers? I think I would be curious just to see, but because it's just one on one, I would feel like maybe that's too intimate. Why can't we just put like four people on it at one time? And then also too,
Ex-
as a woman, I'm wondering how it's gonna look because I'm looking at this ad and it's like two old white guys. You kind of see like they look like, director of XYZ startup. And so I was like, are they going to want to talk to me? They're probably going to see me and be like, skip immediately. Or that's how I feel. Or
oh,
like, God forbid, they think I would be interested romantically. Like, it just kind of feels already like in real
well,
life.
maybe there's themes around how people are connecting, right? Like there,
Yeah.
I would imagine that when they're trying to group people together for these 2-minute calls, it must be over a shared concept of some kind. It couldn't just be like, because, yeah, like, oh, let's just get up with some random person. I mean, how weird would that be in real life? Let me just call some random number and see if someone
Like,
wants to talk to me.
wait, can you hear?
This is very strange.
A lot of men.
It's all men. It's all men just meeting other men. Yeah, that's like chat roulette. It's Nathy. Was that Nathy?
Probably, I think it is.
Or a tap. But there were literally
No,
like,
it is him.
there's like no women on
Yeah,
there.
that is him.
So it's
That is
not for
Nathan.
dating, at least women.
It's not for women,
It's a
that's for
men's
sure.
dating app.
Oh, there's data.
It's men's speed dating app on the Apple Vision Pro. Who asked for that? Who
Did
asked
you
for
think
that,
this is
Clorama?
obligatory one
No,
diversity?
yeah, it's like no
They're asking.
DEI.
Yeah, no,
What in
this
the
is what
woke
happened.
DEI are you asking for?
I was gonna try it out. Now I'm like,
Yeah, put your picture up there and see what happens.
yeah. I wonder if you can report. I wonder if there's any integrity stuff.
Are there no female like Apple Vision Pro users that want to talk to anybody? It's like the manosphere.
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought
curious to
that
see
ad is
what.
very strange, frankly. I mean, it's very strange because it was just nothing but guys talking to other guys, and you're just like,
Yeah,
well,
maybe that's their target audience, though.
like maybe that, yeah, like what are the demographic? Like they just don't have any.
Maybe they feel like men are asking for this, and there is a male loneliness epidemic. So maybe this is tapping it, market opportunity.
Yeah, overcome loneliness. Yeah. Yes, to overcome loneliness and
Yeah.
isolation. I mean, and it's a health issue,
Well, no, but like women already have friends, so that's probably why. Like this is the thing. Every product always has a target
They're
persona.
busy raising
So
children, Clorama. What are you
they're
talking about?
busy
They're busy
raising
like making
children.
sandwiches. The only thing they have to talk about are, exchanging recipes and
Right.
how to,
You,
change a
you're
diaper.
right. You're right. But you know the funny thing is too, and this is where I'm saying this is a missed opportunity. But maybe only men would spend 4,500 just to have this. But you have Bumble up BFF.
Okay, no.
Oh, there's a Bumble dating app
Uh-huh.
that was a spinoff of Tinder. So the woman
Oh, right.
founder,
Yes.
because Tinder was
Well, they
founded
were
by a woman
dating
and a
though,
man
right?
too.
And they started
They were,
dating and then
yeah,
it didn't go well.
yeah, not surprise, surprise, and and then so she left. And she started her own Bumble dating app, which is just as successful. Woman I know that uses it, they use it for friendship, for finding friendship, because
Oh.
that's what I don't think Tinder has that model, but Bumble has it. You can do it for dating, or you can look for friends in your neighborhood.
Oh, activities.
Yeah.
partners.
So a lot of my friends have been using it for that. They don't have a friend to go out with. They'll just look up to see if there's, hey, is there anybody that wants to go dancing at this one place tonight or try this yoga spot with me? And so that's been a very popular app. So I'm curious that maybe this Apple is a
It's like an
similar response, but
activities.
for men. Yeah.
Go build.
Oh my gosh, Grinder? That would be so well if I was like,
Well, that's what I was.
perfect.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this just is like Grinder. So
Like a very immersive Grinder app. That would be amazing. Okay. Okay. So anyway, so that's that. Okay. So, yeah, interesting to see all these different approaches. I think overall VR is still, social VR is early. There is product market fit has been sprinkles here and there, but VR is there's so many bigger pieces of it to have to get right.
it can overcome those challenges in a way that is meaningful enough to compete with being able to just connect with people over a mobile game.
Yeah, the ability for it to scale is very much hindered by all the constraints of hardware, software, changing strategies every 6 months. And then you see all these different priorities. Some companies are prioritizing hanging out with other friends in VR. Some companies have tried hanging out with people outside of VR. So from VR headset to somebody on the laptop. Apple's doing the headset video calling within headset. I don't think the Galaxy has a social component. So you would have to go into third-party apps, and it's still early, I guess, in the long grand scheme of social VR success. So I think we still have more to go. There is still room or an opportunity for that big first social VR answer to Roblox and Fortnite in VR. And I guess whether some are dying doesn't really tell the larger story of whether it's successful or not.
Well, it's what if you can sustain. Let's say you have. I know I was looking at some of the stats. You can look on the Steam store to see what the stats are for who's in the game and what are the top games. And on Steam, VR chat shows up. Now, I don't know how many people are playing on desktop versus VR, but it's still like in the top 30 games, right? It's like number 30. So there'll be like upwards of 40,000 people playing at any given time, which is a lot for VR and social VR. But on the scale of what people are playing in Roblox, it's just a grain of sand. So,
so maybe arguably VR chat could have scaled if it wasn't hindered by hardware constraints.
And you don't know the cost of maintaining all the servers either, right? That starts to come into play versus what people are actually gaining from it. And VR chat is growing, but is it growing fast enough to meet like their costs? It's hard to say.
VR chat has been here for almost a decade now, and if it's still in the top 30 and it's still mostly VR, that is something to very much learn from. And again, the one thing about VR chat is that it's all very non-humanoid, and that must be removing identity and allowing people to express themselves, be in a basketball or whatever. There must be something to that has been able to keep this platform more successful than the Rec Rooms and the Rising Worlds, and the Poker Stars is successful because the game itself, it's poker.
Chat succeeds too because it there's so much freedom of expression, and there isn't a lot of moderation, and there is a lot of anything goes, and that's what's able to make it thrive. So,
and the UGC is on the games. The UGC has been really, really well done because I think they allow you to make the games off the game engine and import it.
But in VR chat,
yeah,
they have their own. Their engine is Udon. Rec Room, the avatars never appealed to me, and I could never really get into it. To me, it just seemed like it was for children, and so I did not need to be there for any reason. And then in Gorilla Tag, it's so populated with kids. I just don't talk when I'm in Gorilla Tag because they'll be like, "Oh, it's grandma's here," like
it's a very, very playful.
It's clear I'm just an adult.
But in those games too, also non-humanoid. So I think there's something to that non-humanoid.
Yeah.
VR chat is bottom up as well, and also unlike Rec Room does have a uniformed look, whereas VR chat doesn't. VR chat, you can get the cartoon look, or you can get a hyper realistic world. You never know what you're gonna get, and they're all really well done. From how they allow for discovery, it really feels like a new novelty. So I think there's something to learn from there. Did you ever play Zenith? It was like the first MMORPG, whatever it's called. Role-playing game that you can access from any hardware device.
So it's Ramen VR developed that. It was released in early access for Windows, Quest, and PlayStation in January 2022, and then it recently shut down. It looks like they just couldn't retain players. The retention
Maybe
was low, and
yeah.
then the costs were too high to manage the
Yeah.
servers. VR chat sustains over 40,000 to 47,000 average daily concurrent players, while monthly active users across PC and Quest are not officially disclosed. Estimated web traffic suggests millions of active users.
Wow. It's
So,
interesting they won't disclose it though.
right.
Yeah, that already says something. So the social VR, I think people who really want it, they don't want to be themselves. They want to be able to express themselves in a way that's bigger than their physical identity. That's what VR allows you to do, and that's what's being used in the most successful social VR experience. And that's what VR chat brings. You never know what you're gonna get when you get in a new world. Whereas I feel like Rec Room, there was some level of uniformity across all these different worlds. And then if you can create safety by design, then there's less tools you need. But the more humanoid your avatars are, the more safety experiences you're going to need, especially when there is no activity you're oriented around. They call this in urban planning negative space. So, for example, when you're building park, they don't have enough things, like maybe there's not
There's no
activities in the park.
benches or there's
Yeah.
no water fountains and
Yes. They become negative spaces where people go and loiter. That's where crime happens. So the way to turn a negative space into a positive space. So Central Park is like the biggest probably example of this, where it was filled with crime because it was a low invested space. Was they started gardening, they started having people who worked on it every day, volunteers showing up, and you started seeing all these visible signs of care into it and structure. And this is the table for people to use, and this is the playground, and people were cleaning every day. All that negative stuff goes away. People don't feel comfortable doing their drugs there because they might be seen, or somebody might call the cops on them. It becomes a space that's maintained and therefore safer
community
for people to go and
norms.
enjoy.
Yeah, community norms start to take hold.
Yeah.
There's more like community life around those places.
Yes, and there's shared investment. All those people that use
Right.
that park now on a regular, they feel a sense of ownership and they want to protect it. And that's a bottoms up like kind of approach. VR chat is also like that. There's a lot of people who've created it, so everyone's respectful of what they've created with each other. Horizon Worlds did have that as well, but I think it was hard to create, and you couldn't really create that much different based on the tools and what they have. There wasn't that much imagination. You'd have to work within the confines of the materials that you are given, and limited in like the scope of what you can build. But I'm assuming for VR chat, it was kind of like sky's the limit within that UDON. Like you can use any type of material, photos, real photos versus cartoon, whatever your vision is, you can actually build it as you see it, rather than like I only have 5 different types of shapes in this thing. So how do I make this tree out of the square and the circle? I'm like, you know, there's a lot of learnings that are emerging now that we have enough of the social VRs that have failed and some are succeeding and some in the middle. We're seeing what might be replicated, and maybe if they turn things around and do another VR chat on the platform, maybe if we were going to create a social VR place and make a VR chat replica but in our own mind, maybe that could be successful again, taking those elements.
I mean, I think if I were to make a social VR world, it would definitely be a more closed experience. It would akin to like the kind of experience that you had on Alcove, where you're already connecting with your contacts, but that's what prevents the scaling and the growth, because you're not able to connect with all these different people around the world and have those open world experiences, and that's what you need. So it would have limited success and limited ability to, overwhelm people or create these negative experiences where people felt too exposed or vulnerable.
And your grandmother would need to have the headset and need to work it as well too.
Yeah, it's like something that I could meet my mom or my grandmother in, and that's not and that's not the demographic that scales or spends a lot of money on digital goods.
We're not going to say social VR is dead, but there's definitely
a lot to learn, and it's a big hit. I mean, losing Horizon Worlds is a definitely a hard pill to swallow after all the creators spent all that time and energy building out their experiences and trying to build businesses there also.
And it raises bigger questions for the broader platform as well. That to me is core. Like if that is being called quit, what does that mean for the rest of the Quest platform or the VR platform? And then what does that mean for the rest of the industry? But yeah, I do want us to maintain a realistic perspective of what this means. We don't know what the day is, but the days are numbered for sure. Yes. So this is officially sand that everything has been built on, and a wave will surely come. So we've been bought extra time, and we can be grateful for that. Go through the 5 stages of grief of but this is a new opportunity to expand your business if you had a business on there beyond just this platform. I do think we're in a recession a bit. We're in a VR recession, and it's correcting, like, what it's going to be designed for. And I think we're in that middle zone, that liminal zone, where we have to now think of our identities or create or recreate our identities outside of this, so that way we have a healthier attachment to the instability and the uncertainty that's going to continue for a while in this
And
space.
learn from all the previous mistakes too. I think that it opens up an opportunity. Now that the pressure is off to perform at a certain level, people can explore and without everyone having these expectations,
Yeah.
and let things kind of happen organically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Ceciliana, for joining me for this great
Thanks
conversation.
again.
Kind of
It's
like
been
a free.
great.
And if you join this conversation, tell us, are you feeling more optimistic, less optimistic? And please like and subscribe if you join this conversation.
Share this with anyone that's having these conversations in your community. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next
Yes.
video.
See you.